The world watched, captivated, as Anthony Joshua, a two-time unified world heavyweight champion, a titan of modern boxing, stood over the still form of a knocked-out Jake Paul. The knockout wasn't just a punch, it was a statement. It was brutal, definitive, the final concussive blow in a fight that, for all intents and purposes, looked like the spectacular end for the influencer-turned-boxer. The lights were bright, the canvas was hard, and the story seemed to be over. But this wasn't the end. In fact, it wasn't even the beginning of the end. It was the beginning of the next chapter. The real knockout, the one that truly shook an entire industry, wasn't the perfectly timed punch that landed on Paul's jaw. No, the real knockout was the meticulously crafted marketing and business plan that reportedly compelled an astonishing 60 million households to tune in and watch it happen. This is the story of how a loss in the ring became a monumental victory in the bank. For a minute, just a fleeting moment, it seemed like all the critics, all the doubters, and all of the boxing purists had been proven right. There was Jake Paul, the brash internet celebrity, flat on the mat, utterly defeated by a true legend of the sport. The internet, as it always does, exploded. To the purists, it was long overdue justice for the sport that they held sacred. To his legions of haters, it was a moment of glorious public failure. This was supposed to be it. This was the moment that the circus finally packed up its tent and a real boxer put the loudmouth YouTuber back in his lane for good. But what if that very moment, that image of defeat broadcasted around the globe, was exactly what he had planned for all along? What if the public loss was a calculated part of that strategy? This event was never just a fight, it was a product launch, a global content event, a masterfully engineered spectacle designed to be a win no matter the physical outcome in the ring. The story didn't end with the knockout. In a strange and brilliant way, that's precisely where it began. So how did a brutal public loss become the single most brilliant business move of Jake Paul's entire career? Stick around, because we're about to dissect the master plan that turned a devastating knockout into an invincible and incredibly profitable business strategy. To truly understand the scale of this event, you have to look past the ropes and the gloves and see what they were actually selling. This wasn't just a boxing match, it was a perfectly constructed movie script, tailor-made and optimized for the viral dynamics of the internet age. It was a story first and a sport second. They reached back and took the oldest story in the book, the timeless tale of David versus Goliath, and brilliantly recasted it with modern digital age celebrities. On one side of the poster, you had Anthony Joshua. He was cast as the final boss, the end-level guardian, an Olympic gold medalist, a national hero in the UK, and a beloved champion for boxing purists everywhere. His role in the script was clear: to defend the honor and integrity of the sweet science from a loudmouthed pretender. He was the establishment, the tradition, the very soul of the sport. And on the other side, you had Jake Paul. He wasn't the hero, he was the villain, the disruptor, a content creator who understands better than almost anyone that controversy and conflict generate far more clicks than a technically perfect left hook. To his millions of devoted fans, he was the ultimate underdog, a symbol of the new media world taking on the old guard. But to everyone else, he was the bad guy you would happily pay money to see get knocked out. He embodied everything the purists despised: fame without dues, money without tradition, and a platform built on antics, not athletics. This old school versus new money narrative was nothing short of genius. It was a storytelling masterstroke that gave two completely separate and often opposed audiences a powerful emotional reason to care, to watch, and to pay. Think about the motivation it created. First, you have the boxing fans. They weren't just paying for a sporting event, they were paying for justice. They were tuning in with the fervent hope of seeing the natural order restored, of witnessing the YouTuber finally get what they felt was coming to him. Every dollar they spent was a vote for tradition and a prayer for the humbling of a perceived charlatan. Then you have Jake's fans and the entire creator-centric world. They were paying for a dream. They were investing in the possibility, however slim, that their guy could defy reality. They were watching to see if a digital native hero could step out of the internet and beat the final boss in real life, proving that the new world could conquer the old. Most Valuable Promotions, Paul's own company, didn't just sell tickets to a fight. They sold a Hollywood story with clearly defined heroes and villains. A story that guaranteed that millions of people who knew absolutely nothing about boxing would be utterly glued to their screens, emotionally invested in the outcome. The entire event was constructed less like a sporting contest and more like a casino, meticulously designed so that the house was guaranteed to win and win big. The vast majority of the money was secured, locked in, and counted months before the first punch was even thrown. This financial architecture made the winner of the actual fight almost irrelevant to the success of the business venture. Here's a breakdown of how this incredible money machine was engineered to print cash, regardless of the result. First and foremost was the Netflix revolution. This was the strategic linchpin. Instead of a traditional high-priced $6 pay-per-view model, which creates a significant barrier to entry for casual fans, the fight was broadcast on Netflix. This single decision gave it the potential audience of nearly 300 million global subscribers for a monthly fee as low as $7. It transformed the event from a niche, expensive purchase into an accessible, mass-market cultural moment. We've seen this model work before. A previous Paul event reportedly drove an astounding 1.43 million new subscriptions to a streaming service in just 3 days. It's an insane engine for viewership, turning a boxing match into a subscriber acquisition tool for one of the biggest companies in the world. Next came the new age sponsors. Jake Paul's massive, young, and highly engaged following is a certified gold mine for brands desperate to reach the next generation. Companies from the worlds of tech, fast fashion, mobile gaming, and energy drinks spent a fortune to have their logos associated with the event. They weren't just sponsoring a boxer, they were buying direct access to a coveted demographic, completely bypassing the traditional old-school boxing sponsors like beer and automotive companies. Paul doesn't just have fans, he has a community, and he can sell access to that community for a premium price. Finally, there was the prize pool. The numbers themselves are staggering. Anthony Joshua was guaranteed a reported $50 million, a testament to his legendary status. But the total prize pool was an incredible $184 million. Jake's portion of that colossal sum meant that he walked away with the single biggest payday of his entire career for losing. Let that sink in. He earned more from this one defeat than from all of his previous victories combined. This is the core of the strategy. Jake Paul is not just a fighter, he is a human media company. His single most powerful weapon isn't his overhand right, it's his unmatched ability to convert social media followers into 60 million paying households. This is where the strategy elevates from just being smart to being pure, unadulterated genius. The marketing, the narrative, and the financial structure were so perfectly intertwined that no matter what happened inside that ring, Jake Paul was guaranteed to come out of it with a bigger brand, more respect, and a clear path to an even bigger payday. It was the ultimate no-lose scenario. So let's break down the two possible outcomes of the fight, starting with what actually happened. First, let's look at the real-world outcome. He got brutally and decisively knocked out. For any normal professional boxer, a public loss of this magnitude is a career ender. It's the moment the hype train derails. The aura of invincibility vanishes, the future paydays shrink dramatically, and the brand is permanently damaged. For most, it's over. The path back to the top becomes nearly impossible. But for Jake Paul, the loss was secretly a win. It was a calculated risk that paid off handsomely. The public narrative immediately flipped. It wasn't Jake Paul is a terrible boxer and a fraud. Instead, it became, look at the incredible heart on the YouTuber who was brave enough to step into the ring with a giant like Anthony Joshua. He lost, but he lost to a legend. That single fact gave him more credibility and respect in the boxing world than beating 10 more retired MMA fighters or washed-up celebrities ever could. Even the boxing promoter Eddie Hearn, a pillar of the very establishment Paul was challenging, had to admit, hats off to Jake. That quote is a priceless asset. It's validation from his biggest critics, a soundbite he can leverage forever. The loss wasn't a failure, it was a strategic brand upgrade. Now take a moment and imagine the second, far less likely outcome. What if he had somehow won? What if his punch had landed first? It would have been the single biggest upset in modern sports history, bar none. He would have become the most famous and talked about athlete on the entire planet overnight. His victory would have been a story for the ages, a moment that transcended boxing and became a global cultural phenomenon. This was the perfect trap he and his team had set. Outcome 1. The loss. He loses to a bona fide boxing legend, is widely praised for his courage and heart, earns grudging respect from his fiercest haters, and walks away with tens of millions of dollars. His next fight, a comeback story, is now an even bigger and more anticipated event. Outcome 2, the win. He defeats a legend, becomes a living sports god, and completely takes over the entire combat sports world, shattering every record and expectation in the process. When your absolute worst case scenario involves making more money than you've ever made before, while simultaneously winning over your biggest critics and elevating your brand, the knockout becomes irrelevant. You've already won long before the first bell rings. This business model is undeniably genius and its effectiveness is proven, but it raises a huge question about the sport itself. So I want to know what you think. Is this new model of selling narratives and characters actually good for the long-term health of boxing, bringing in new, younger audiences, or is it a troubling sign that the sport is losing its soul, prioritizing spectacle over substance? Let me know your honest take in the comments below. In the end, when the dust settled and the headlines faded, who was the real winner of Paul versus Joshua? On paper, on the official record, Anthony Joshua did exactly what a world champion is supposed to do. He won, decisively. But when you look at the event from a business perspective, from a strategic long-term view, the real winner isn't a person at all. It was the model. Jake Paul proved that in today's fiercely competitive attention economy, the story you tell is far more powerful and far more profitable than the punches you land. He may have lost the physical fight in the ring, but his brand is now bigger, more resilient, and more respected than it has ever been. He took a brutal public defeat, the kind of moment that would end most careers, and masterfully transformed it into his single greatest asset. He showed the entire world that if you are skilled enough to control the narrative, you ultimately control the outcome, long after the final bell rings. I'm Rob and this is the DR Pulse. If this breakdown knocked some strategy ideas around, hit that like button and subscribe for more breakdowns just like this.
For more trending brand news, subscribe to our channel and visit designrush.com.